Hello everyone, watch this review here with a look at Robin from DC Universe Classics Wave 16, aka the Bane Wave. Now this is the variant Robin, which basically just amounts to a different head sculpt. Why they couldn't just include both heads in the pack, I will never know or understand, but here we are. Of course, he's also positioned in a sort of crazy pose and box, which, I'm not sure why they opted to do that, just because you don't really get a good view or sense of the figure. Now, in case you're wondering why I opted for the variant instead of the standard, well, there is a simple, very logical explanation for it. You see, I was in Toys R Us today, and they had the variant, but not the standard. That's the story. But yeah, for whatever reason, the Robins seem to be the rarer of the figures of the wave. Them and the Azrael Batman. So, this is only the second time I've ever seen one of these in stores. The first time it had a more noticeable paint defect, but I think to a certain extent the leg or whatever is going to always look kind of messed up just because the paint runs and then the very visible seam. But hold on a second and I'll get him out of the box. Robin comes with that nifty grappling gun that you saw him displayed with in box, while the grapple can fit into the gun. It doesn't have like a spring or anything to fire, it's just purely for display, so you can either hold it like it's about to be fired, or you can probably attach it to something and just have him partially suspended by it, like he's climbing up a wall or something. In addition to a batarang, which is elastic banded into his hand at first. In addition to the head and groin piece of Bane. Now, for some reason they seem to include the groin piece fairly often with either the female character or a character sort of reputed to be homosexual. I'm not sure if this is like a deliberate choice, but it's just kind of weird. In case you're wondering how this character scales, he is at the new teen height, which is, is about 5 3/4 inches tall. So a reminder, here's the original height they were using for the kid characters, which is considerably smaller. This, of course, was the height that the Tim Drake Robin, I believe, came out at. Now to scale him against a adult character, let's quickly bring in classic Detective Batman, who honestly is the perfect Batman to put next to this figure. So, it's got the whole same time period vibe or whatever to it. So, it does work out pretty nicely. I believe it's the proper height and everything. And if it isn't, it looks like the proper height, and at the end of the day, that's more what matters. As for the Robin itself, he's actually a pretty impressive looking figure. The only issue is the joints can be a little warped coming out of the box because of how they had him posed. Now, a lot of people are calling this the Jason Todd Robin. If you're not familiar with Jason Todd, he was brought in as a replacement, well, sort of like a surrogate proxy, whatever, in 1983, because by then the original Robin had gone off to become a sort of substantial member of the Teen Titans, and the all-new Teen Titans was a pretty big deal at that point. So they needed to bring in a new one. Enter yet another orphan, the second in the lot, who originally was kind of well-liked, but by the end, people were voting to have him killed off, so... Well, let's just say that the 80s weren't a good time to be Batman's sidekick in the first place. Either you ended up dead or you became a paraplegic. Just saying. Now, in case you're wondering why Batman kind of needs characters like Robin and other supporting ones, it's basically so he's not left talking to himself and looking kind of like a paranoid schizophrenic, which, his tendencies kind of push him in that direction. A lot of people kind of draw the parallels between Rorschach and Batman as opposed to, say, the Question and Rorschach. But I'm completely off tangent. The paint and everything's just kind of exceptional on this figure. You'll notice that there's a heavy amount of shading and stuff on the red portions. I don't want to look at the Speedo, but if you look at the Speedo, I'm turned away at this point, so I don't know where I'm pointing, but they do have a fair amount of shadowing and stuff for that, which, you know, is an incredible amount of detail for his crotch area. I think I'm probably highlighting it now. So, yeah, in your face. But yeah, it's just really impressive that they put that kind of detail in there. More detail than you'd ever want to see. And then, of course, you also have shading in these indents on the boots and stuff. The hands, though, actually no, even the hands have some painting, because they're kind of bad. Occasionally they'll like use normal cast plastic or whatever, and not bother painting for the hand portions, but in this case they did, which is pretty cool. Cape has what looks to be some tones of yellow, but it looks more like a solid cast than the rest. So I mean, of everything, the paint is probably the weakest on the cape. The skin has a kind of weird tone to it. It's sort of a bronzish look. It's definitely got a, you know, sort of fused color and stuff, which really gives it more definition and stuff than traditional. Lost my train of thought, but needless to say, the paint on the skin is impressive, as is the portion for the chest here. And even like the green portions, it's just the cape, maybe a little bit weak. The other kind of weak area is just the fact they gave him those stupid blue highlights. I absolutely hate the blue highlights that they end up using for so many characters in the line. So, I mean, they're just too prominent. They pop out. It's just so blatantly blue. It looks like they went to a stylist and just got the absolute worst possible job. But the face sculpt wise is pretty neat. You know, the paint, you know, is pretty solid. But again, freaking massive highlights. In terms of articulation, he has a fair amount of head movement, which you don't really see as often, but again, can't get a huge amount. Sort of normal shoulder movement, somewhat impeded by cape if you try to go up too far, but I don't think you'd ever really reach that point. We of course have a point of rotation at the bicep, then a double joint here at the elbow, rotation at the wrist, in addition to forward and back, which is just really awesome. They did completely go all out in the articulation for this. The Sinestro Corps Scarecrow is kind of the same way, just in terms of the crazy amounts of articulation. We also have the standard ab/diaphragm joint here. You don't get as much of a crunch though. I don't know, maybe I just need to really break the joint in. It's kind of weird though. Not sure what could possibly be causing it. Then we have a point of rotation at the waist. Legs kick out to the side. The bottom portion of the tunic or whatever here doesn't really impede it. It's kind of far up, plus it's a really soft plastic. Rotation upper thigh, double jointed knee. Then down the ankle we have this kind of weird joint, which is actually a bit better than even the Scarecrow, which I'm just randomly comparing it to because it has a full range of rotation. In addition to having a little forward up because it's on a sort of ball and socket. The only drawback is it's an incredibly ugly joint. I mean, look at that. It just sort of stands out, but you know, you kind of need that just to get some of the wall climbing poses. Although, I mean, a lot of the wall climbing poses, I don't think you'd ever want to pose them in anyway, just because it just looks kind of too funky. I don't know. It's just my impression, though. But yeah, just really incredible amount of articulation, this guy. Very decent. All in all, I have to say this is probably my second favorite figure in the wave, possibly. Right after the Riddler. Just because they really nailed it in terms of articulation and paint and everything. Possibly the second nicest after the Jonah Hex. I think the Jonah Hex might be the nicest looking figure in the wave in general. Although, you know, I guess the Bane... You know, I reserve that judgment until I open the Bane, but at any rate, This has been a look at Robin. I am one step closer to finishing Bane off. I just need up the 2 peg warmers, which I probably shouldn't have finding in stores, and then the Murky, which for some reason is actually hard to find in stores now. I mean, this wave in general is kind of difficult to find. Once again, look at the Robin variant, the somewhat Jason Todd looking one. Till next time, folks.